Greetings, welcome back to Southpaw RC. Thanks very much for joining us. Right, today as you can see we've got the SG1203. Now I've done a few modifications to this, so I thought I'd give you a chance to have a look at what we've done other than obviously just painting and decorating. We've got the camel trophy logos and some paint detailing, various sort of just decaling and stuff on top of the body. Inside, as you can see, we've got a little geezer strapped in. He holds onto the top of the car. Just painted that in for effect, really. The first of the two weights, as you can see in the bottom there, it's a great big solid steel washer from wall mounting bolts, so it's quite a large bit of lump. And we've also got another one, another bar weight strapped or glued in to the front there, so there's quite a lot of weight. But what it has done, it's moved the center of gravity from here, which is all this gearbox and then your electronics, so it's moved it about to roughly about the center of the center strut, which is exactly where you want it. Really, you want sort of 50-50 weight distribution where you can get it. I've also, as you can see, created a perspex and silicon sealed electronics box, so there's very little chance of any water getting into there. Can't really seal the whole design because if you look down here you can see that there's a gap in the bodywork where the actual drives go through for the wheels. Now you could probably mount some sort of rubber sort of gaiter system around it if you really wanted to. The gears system itself is not actually a problem with getting water in there because it's greased to hell, which is another one of the mods I've done. I've greased up the mod, definitely greased up the gearbox because there was very little in there when I first got it. I've silicone sealed all the way around the electronics just in case, and the port where the battery lead comes from, the base section there, is silicon sealed. I've snapped off the two tabs and silicon sealed the holes there, so there's no water able to get into the battery bay, and we're just using a screw to hold the battery in place. Put a little bit of silicone around the inside of this switch as well, just to make sure that there's no water. You can't make it completely waterproof without doing something about this electronics box here that goes for the gear drop, because you've got two motors. But that's about as waterproof as you're going to get for now. So also we've done the treads. Don't know whether you can see there on the tracks. I've cut a groove all the way along the whole tread. That took about 4 hours. It's horrendous work, but kept all the little lumps that we cut out of those with a craft knife, and we've glued them back on the top. So you should be able to see there's some cleats there, just giving a little bit of extra traction. It's had about 4 runs. We've lost a couple of cleats, but I've got some spare bits of rubber that I'm going to replace that with. Now you might notice that she's sitting slightly different to the standard CGO 1203. She's actually now much more like the actual Ripsaw in that she's front nose up. What I've done, I've taken out the suspension springs at the back here and replaced those with much softer springs. I got a pack of biros, believe it or not, and used the springs from a pack of just click pen biros, 2 of those in there instead of the very, very stiff springs. I'll show you. Right, so here, if I can, I doubt very much that'll focus on there on its own. Here's one of the springs. I've shortened these down. These are the original springs. I've actually shrunk these down a little bit, crushed them down, so they're about 5mm shorter than they were when they were mounted in here. At the moment I'm going to run it with the really soft middle rear suspension, so that it's got that much more angle to tip up. The front, the middle suspensions, I've taken both of those out and stretched the springs, just gently stretched them by about 5 or 6mm, so they're ever so slightly longer, and that's raised up this suspension in the middle and gives it a bit more actual sort of traction when it's going over stuff. And it's also had the effect of lifting the front. I've done nothing to the front 2 springs, they're exactly the same as they were, so it's stretching the middle springs and softening the rears, giving you that lifted angle, which is what you want from a Ripsaw. Now if I have problems with the rear springs being too soft and just smacking and essentially not being sprung, we're going to replace these originals that are shorter. We've crushed them down. We're going to replace them back with those. For now, we're just going to give it a test on the super soft suspension. But that is the extent of the mods that I've done to this so far. I haven't replaced any electronics. I haven't given it a new motor or anything else. There's our little dude. Mini Steve sat in the tank. Yeah, so that is the state of the upgrades at the moment. I've also got some more rubber, hard rubber material that I'm going to replace these cleats with for double width across the whole of the track, so it just gives it that little bit more traction. But I'll show you some footage of this thing moving. It really does lift now. It powers through logs and all sorts of things. It's pretty much unstoppable. So all these mods cost me essentially £1.60 for a pack of 10 biros, and we've replaced them, the springs on the biros. I used a muffin box, a box of mini muffins from Tesco's. Used the plastic for that to create the box around the electronics, and cut grooves in the side to run the cables through, and then silicone sealed those grooves. And just for double protection, I've coated it in black tape and emergency and engineering tape, just to make sure it's as waterproof, as splash proof as it's going to get. This isn't going to get submerged, but it will get running in through puddles and in, you know, sort of small streams if we can find any. So I want it water resistant certainly, but it won't be waterproof. If I can, I'll pick it up and show you, the center of balance is now much more central than it was. So if I put my hand in the middle, it's now balancing roughly on the center, which is great. It's much better, because when you buy this, it's extremely heavy rear-ended. It's quite a heavy 12 scale as it is, but it's very rear weighted because of all that gearbox at the back. So you need to move some of that weight forward. You might think, wow, that's a lot of weight you've put in the front there. But when you watch it run, it actually means that when it gets that sort of 45 degrees upwards, the front will then come down when you're going up a hill, rather than just tip it over backwards. So that's what the weight's for. It doesn't reduce, I haven't noticed it reducing the drive time, to be honest. It still gets, at crawling speeds, you'll get 25-30 minutes out of it. If you're running it fast all the time, you'll get 12 minutes, maybe 12 minutes of hard bashing with it. So it's not really affected its performance very much, but it has, as far as battery life goes, but it has affected the performance, and it runs so much nicer. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the next video of this one, because this will be some cinematic footage with the new T5 Pro camera. So hopefully some 240 frames a second stuff and all sorts of slow-mos. So look out for that one. Thanks for joining us on South Bar RC. I'll see you next time.